It is at 12:11. We'll call our meeting to order.
Is that you calling for me?
Yeah,
Here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a little trouble hearing.
Sorry, I think our system is not great today, unfortunately. Jessica Dixon. Here. Matt Covrangi. Well, Kevin.
Here. Do you want to go through the motions of allowing Julie to participate remotely?
Yes. Julie Peterson has requested remotely for ASB 449, which states that board members may remotely for just cause should they have a continued illness that will keep them attending. Chair Pimentel, would you like to make a motion that Julie Peterson is able to attend?
I'll move the motion.
All right, I'll take a roll on this item. Julie Peterson?
Yes.
Jessica Dixon? Yes. Chair Pimentel?
Yes.
And Matt Covrangi.
And Julie, can you just confirm nobody is in your room over the age of 18?
Nobody is in my room over the age of 18.
Great, thank you. So before we continue on with our meeting, I want to take a moment to reflect on the passing of our friend and colleague John Frill, who unfortunately passed away this past Friday. On behalf of our entire Finance Committee and staff, I want to share my deepest condolences to the family of our friend John, our former Watsonville Hospital CEO, and recently our Hospital and District Board Chair, and member of this Finance Committee since its origins. It is with a heavy heart that we bid farewell to John. I'm honored to be holding this meeting in a room that will now always bear his name, in the John Frill Boardroom at our Watsonville Community Hospital. John has guided the construction of this hospital and the healthcare community campus following the devastating 1989 earthquake, a gift we continue to be thankful for, as we are one of the few hospitals that meets current seismic standards. John's impact, full leadership, and unwavering dedication continued, where in 2022, he again made a profound commitment to our community's health inequities by serving on the inaugural boards that brought our community hospital in this district back under local control. And as board chair, he guided us through the formation and turnaround plan of our Watsonville Hospital, supported us through Measure N, through its success, and he will leave an indelible mark on all who have had the privilege of knowing him. Beyond his remarkable professional contributions, John's kindness, humility, and genuine concern for others touched the lives of countless individuals. He fostered a culture of professionalism and dedication, inspiring those around him to serve for excellence and embrace the values of empathy and service. As we reflect on John's legacy, let us carry forward with our Finance Committee meeting his enduring spirit of excellence, resiliency, fiscal sustainability to ensure we are in a position to always serve our entire community. With our deepest thoughts and sympathies are with John's family, his loved ones, and his friends during this difficult time. With that, we'll move on to the rest of our Finance Committee meeting. Are there any changes to our agenda? Seeing none, we'll open the meeting up to public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Seeing none present. Comments from community members? Seeing none, we'll move to our first action item, which is our consent. On our consent are our minutes from our February 27th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted in the board packet on Friday? Thank you, Jessica. Do we have a second? I'll move the second. Mind calling.
I'm really having a hard time hearing Rosie.
So do you vote yes or no to the minutes approval?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Great. That moves us to our discussion items. We have two discussion items on our agenda. First is our 2023 consolidated audit report. Will Gerald be presenting this?
Gerald, are you ready to present?
I am.
Yeah, that's fine.
Right. Everybody hear me okay? Julie, you can hear me okay?
We all got you.
Oh. Julie, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
How about now?
There you go.
All right, great.
You know-
I'm going to hang up my phone call and just be on the Teams or Zoom.
Zoom. Okay.
Thanks.
I don't know how you did it, Julie, but you were able to get me sick with the same thing you have through our phone calls and our Zoom meetings. So no, I mean it's going through my family and friends. I've got a couple of grandchildren and couple of my kids and in-laws that are sick as well. Kind of this whole thing. I mean, I feel fine working here at home, but I wouldn't want to be out and around, getting around everybody and getting them sick. I'm sure it's going around there as well. But anyway, we're reporting on the December 31st, 2023. The year ended, so the calendar year ended December 31st. Audit's been completed, and so what I'll go through first. I'll go through the four things that will have to be reported to the board. We'll talk about how the board presentation will go in a bit. Let's just get through this first, and we can have that discussion. So first, we report you received unmodified opinions for both audits. That's both the financial audit and the governmental audit that you're required, similar to last year. Oh, probably what I should first ask is, was everyone present for my audit presentation a few months back, or for the initial audit that we did? Or are there any new members of the finance committee or board or whatever?
No, everybody was present.
Good. Well, then you kind of went through this process before. So first, we let you know what opinion you'd have. An unmodified is a clean opinion, and that's what you want. You have two different opinions because there's two audits going on at the same time. There's a standard financial audit that everybody gets, but since the main entity is a district, it's a governmental entity, so you have a governmental audit as well. And so you got a clean opinion on both of those audits. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified during all of our testing and work on the audit, and there were no reportable findings. There were no audit adjustments. There was one late client entry, if you want to call it that. It was just a true up to contract allowances, just to get the numbers in line with the final calculations by Julie and her staff, and to make sure that everything was tied out. And so it had about an impact of about $70,000. And then there were no difficulties encountered with management in performing the audit, no disputes, no disagreements or issues with management. And actually, after last year's audit, to see that we're reporting on this year's audit in March, so 3 months after year end, is that's awesome, and it's really attributable to Julie and her staff really hitting this hard and getting things to us and really being responsive and getting everything done. This is one of my first 1231s this year that we're reporting on. I mean, most of the other ones are either waiting for additional information or still just kind of dragging along on the audit side. So kudos to Julie and her staff, and even when they were sick, they were very responsive and worked hard to get us everything we needed. Any questions on those four items? Okay, let me bring your attention to a couple of things, though, that probably the main, you've already seen the numbers. Obviously, if you have any questions on the numbers, I can answer those. You have the draft, you had a chance to go through it. So if you have any questions on the draft, I'm happy to answer that, but no need to rehash what you've already seen or read or heard in the previous board meetings from Julie. Two significant things I wanted to cover. One is we continue with the component unit reporting. That means it's like a consolidated financial statement with the district and the hospital, because of the ownership management arrangement and whatnot. We are required to combine them into one entity, and that's what you have here. And so just make sure you understand that. On the district side, that includes, there's the clinic is included on the district side as well. It's not a separate entity, it's more like a division, but that's also included in these numbers. And then lastly is this year we have what's called a going concern issue. And you'll notice in the report the financial statement report, audit report, and in the MD&A, and then there's a note, specific note to the fact that that there's a going concern for the hospital. What that means is basically what it means is looking at cash flow, cash availability, and other factors. There's a concern that if certain things don't happen, the hospital couldn't stay in business for a year till the end of next year. Does that make sense? You understand that concept? So what we have
Yeah.
to do then is we have to put that note in and put it in, as another matter in the report, put a note in and add it in the MD&A, basically say, yes, we're in a difficult position. Cash flow has been strained and some other issues and whatnot, but here's management's plan to alleviate these concerns. And so we have it in there, and we have all management's plans. I've gone through them in detail with Julie and her staff, and we concur that. So it's identified, but then we also say we're not making any adjustments or saying that it's that it's happening right now. So we just have to bring it to the attention of any users of the financial statements that if some of these things don't happen, it could be, there could be complications for the hospital. And the main things we pointed out was, you received the distressed hospital loan. We just talked briefly a little about Measure N. Measure N is so far appears to have passed, and that'll be certified, and so that's going on. You have a 2 million line of credit that's available, and you're continuing to management's continuing to look for ways to increase revenue, make sure the revenue cycle is running as efficiently as possible, and manage expenses. So that's in there. It's not uncommon. So a lot of hospitals had it in the over the years. Next year we'll reevaluate it. If your financial, mainly your cash position, your financial position, whether you break even, making money or whatever, or whether significant losses, we'll evaluate that again at year end for the next year's audit. Any questions on that? I don't know if that's a new concept to you or if you need more explanation or whatever, but I can certainly add more explanation if you need it.
No, I think we're good, Gerald. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that's it. Unless, now time's yours. You have any questions on the draft? Any concerns? What I'm hoping is that the finance committee can go into the board meeting and recommend that the audit be approved. And we can talk about what the presentation of that audit to the board looks like. You have a number of options. I can call in or Zoom in like this. If you'd like, I can show up, even though I'm not sure how this whatever it is, bronchitis or flu thing is gonna go for the next few days. Or you can just have the finance committee make their recommendations and have the board vote on it. You probably have a better feel for that than I do, so I'm happy to accommodate you, whatever you feel is necessary.
I like the latter. Let's keep you remote, Gerald. We want to see you in person at some point in time, but not now.
Well, I think it was important for me to get over there last year because it was the first audit, I'm sure, and we didn't know if there was going to be any concerns or questions from the public or whatever. But if I can do it remote, I appreciate it. I'm not feeling travel worthy.
So I'll open the item. I'll hit the 4 elements of the introduction, and then we can just turn it over to you for the board meeting tomorrow night. And
Okay.
if you just want to do a brief summary like you just did now, that's sufficient.
Perfect. That works for me. Do you guys have any questions about the draft? Are you good with the draft or anything you want? I mean, hopefully you've had a chance to kind of look through it. Audit reports aren't the most exciting thing in the world, but if you ever get insomnia, pick one up and read it. It'll put you right to sleep.
I challenged you about the CalPERS actuarial report being even worse, but that's a conversation for another time.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, you probably got me there.
Yep. But no, I think we're good, and the report is very
Okay.
helpful, and it's very grounding to see. While we still finish the year with a loss, it's a much less loss than we've had in the past, and we have a strong plan for our turnaround. So I appreciate your work, and I'm really grateful to staff, Julie, the whole team who's here, and your players who aren't here in this room right now who've led to the timeliness of this audit. I think I heard Julie mention she planned to get this done quicker this year. In my mind, I was allowing ourselves room that if, we might not be able to, and I'm in awe and just humbled by all of you and your work on getting this on time. So thank you.
Yeah, they really were troopers getting us the information we needed. Your hospital is not dissimilar to several throughout the state that are involved with. A lot of hospitals are struggling. It all comes down to having a plan, sticking to it, and having management work with the board and really look for ways to continue to move forward. Yes, there are some red flags and concerns. That's why we have the going concern information in there. But at the same time, there's certainly a way out, as Julie has discussed, the various things that they're working on. It's all the stuff that I've seen over the years, and I would recommend to get yourself to a more solid financial footing. If everything falls into place, which it looks like it is, I don't see why Watsonville doesn't have can be a good, strong, well-funded healthcare provider there in the area for years to come.
I think we all share that sentiment and are excited about being a role model and another test case to add to the list of how you can be sustainable and profitable and still serve your community in a rural area. So thank you, Cheryl, for your...
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watch the news, but Madera Community Hospital is one of our clients, and Madera, similar in size. They just, some management decisions didn't go well, some other things, other impact, and some of the things that you have struggled with over the years as well. But they just weren't able to turn the corner or put certain plans in place. And you can see, I think you guys are much more well positioned than they are to move forward, and we don't have those concerns. But Julie, is there anything you wanted me to touch on, or are we good to go? Oh, you're on mute, Julie. There you go.
No, thank you. I think you covered everything I was expecting, and appreciate all of your comments, and I definitely appreciate my team's work and your team, you and Nate. We've had pretty much weekly meetings for the last couple of months, really pushing hard to meet this time frame so that we can meet all of our reporting covenants, and so I'm very thankful to everybody for that.
Well, then, if you guys are good to I don't know if you have to take a vote or whatever, but if you're good to recommend it be binding, then I'll go ahead and drop off and I'll let you finish your meeting, and I'll be ready to log in tomorrow around 5 o'clock.
Yes, thank you, Gerald. Yeah, for us, there's no action. We've received it, and we'll be forwarded on to the board, and I'll open the item for the board meeting tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Have a good rest of your meeting. See you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Our next item is item number 3, our financial performance for February 2024. Julie, were you going to be able to lead this from where you're at?
Yeah, I think I will if somebody will drive from that side. Okay, I can see it. There we go. All right, here we go. Okay, so here is February year-to-date. We had another strong month in February, and so now after 2 months, we're showing a favorable EBITDA of $1.4 million and net income of $719,000. Mainly can attribute that to strong net revenues because we're ahead of budget by $2.7 million. Things that are contributing to this are some very strong outpatient volume and some of our strategic price increase. We tend to still be trying to value that conservatively as we try to feel comfortable that it is really producing as much net revenue over what we saw last year as it appears to be. So we've been fairly conservative in how we've been valuing the net revenue. I think it'll take us another month or two to really see how, say, the January and some of the early February claims have paid, to give us a sense of comfort with this. So we're still kind of cautiously optimistic. We are seeing higher bad debt. We have seen some increases in the uninsured population. You know, generally speaking, we're at about, 2% uninsured, but we are seeing that we're at about 4.5% in ER-related volume. Labor expenses, they've been pretty solid. We're below budget overall. We do see a little bit higher cost on the benefit side, but our productivity and overtime focus, I think, is paying off, and we are seeing less agency usage at this point. We did implement some daily premium pay tracking and some biweekly productivity reporting, and have had, it's part of our cash management plan, so we've really had people focused on looking at that daily, explaining when their overtime is anything greater than 3% on a daily basis, and then, kind of challenging people that just saying, well, this is why I had it, isn't enough, that you have to look at, is there anything you can do to control it? Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't, sometimes it's just, to help with coverage, but, it is something that everybody's engaged in. We are still kind of challenged with supplies. We've had some very large supply variances. We do know some of it's related to the higher outpatient surgical volume and some higher drug costs, but we're also still feeling kind of challenged with how well our group purchasing organization, the new contract with Vizient, is performing. It doesn't appear to be performing as we expected. So we are forming a kind of little task force with supply chain, and going to be having regular meetings, trying to kind of break it into bite-sized chunks and take a look at, starting with higher volume supplies, how are they performing, and then, kind of continue to work through until we can look at all supplies. We're also expecting to do some PAR optimization work, and so we're going to be getting a tighter focus on the timeline and the deliverables for that effort. And then, as I mentioned last month, in the other category, our unfavorable variance is primarily related to the quality assurance fees being higher than we had anticipated. The good news is that the revenue is also higher than we had budgeted. That was all because the delay of the QAF 8 program we didn't know the exact amounts until after the budget was completed. And then one thing, which is not so much a budget variance as a reclassification, that we're now showing the MPT insurance, the insurance portion of their payment, above the EBITDA line in the other operating expense, as opposed to down below where it used to be in the lease expense. And you can see we have some favorable variance there. Next slide. So, there's a few slides here. I just want to kind of keep these trends visible to us. Not always something to be alarmed about if we, know the reason why we're seeing things. But I think important to keep our eyes on. Here you can see the steady decline in inpatient admissions. As I mentioned last month, some of this is expected and should be occurring because we've gotten a lot tighter look at observation cases versus inpatient admissions and getting those more accurately assessed. It doesn't do us any good to admit somebody as an inpatient if they don't meet inpatient criteria, because we won't get paid for an inpatient stay. So case management has done a lot of work on that, and that is a driver. I'm going to start to drill in a little bit more in the comparison of year over year and see how much of a driver is that accounting for all of the difference, or is there still, also just lower admissions? But that's what we're seeing so far. Next slide. So here's all of the inpatient volume. And so, when your inpatient admissions are down, generally most everything else follows. We have had lower length of stay, which is also, directly related to last year. At this time, we had a few really long length of stay cases. We have a lot of effort on this at the case management level, and so our length of stay is actually very solid, 3.62 for the month against a budget of 3.8. We have been seeing a lower case mix, both in what we budgeted and prior years for February. Last year we were up at 1.6. But you can also see we're okay with where we were last year on surgeries, but not to budget. Sometimes just when the surgeries are down, that's a real driver towards the case mix. We are pretty consistent with deliveries. They have just kind of stayed where they normally are, so feel okay about that. Next slide. Just a little look. I went put the ER visits and non-ER outpatient visits on a similar slide as admissions, and you can see that outpatient visits, not ER, but just regular outpatient visits, they're the green and they're pretty flat when you trend them. But the ER visits are going down slightly. It's not a huge amount, but when you trend it, again, it's just slightly down over the last 6 months. Next slide. Here's surgeries, green being inpatient, blue being outpatient. Certainly, the green is a little troublesome when you see we only had 38 in February, and we're on track right now to have a fairly low March as well. So we're still trying to understand from the clinical teams, maybe what they're seeing there that might be contributing to that. I don't have any answers at this point, but you can definitely see on the outpatient surgeries how we've been trending upwards, and the first 2 months of this year have been extremely strong. 132 last month and 150 in February, which is a short month, is pretty amazing. And we did also have a good robot month with 23 cases in February. Next slide. Here's just another look at the outpatient surgeries, and there's a lot here because I tried to do stacked graphs of some of the various specialties. So what I show in the far right hand for February is the top three being general surgery. We had 73 cases, which is pretty amazing when you look at last year we were averaging 32 cases a month. We had 20 ortho cases. Last year we averaged about 16 a month, 13 OBGYN, and this month, or so far in 24, we've had 15 GI cases. And, up until, the middle of last year when we actually brought in Dr. B and started doing GI cases, we had nothing. So that's new business for us. Next slide. Here's a look at inpatient payer mix. Good news is payer mix, commercial payer mix was a little bit better in February at 13.4%. So but the best of the last 3 months and close to where we were in November. The Alliance continued to grow. That was at 43%, so the strongest that we've had in Alliance volume since in this past year, showing here. And we see a little bit higher mix in the managed Medicare, the senior plan. So that was up at 9.3% this month. Next slide. Here's outpatient. Commercial, very consistent with the prior month. We were at 21.4% this month. Alliance at 46.6%. Again, strong, one of the stronger months with the Alliance. And this month we did see a little bit of a decrease in the overall self-pay over at 2.1%, so down a percentage from last month and even a little further from December. And even as you go back, 2.1, the last time we were below 2.1 was last June. So all the months after that, we were above 2.1, so something good there. Next slide. This changes direction just a little bit. I decided, as we talk about cash flow challenges, and since it'll come up as part of the, audit conversation, I think, we manage cash very carefully every day, looking at what's coming in, what's going out, what can be deferred, what can be negotiated. And one of the things that I did recently do and said I would report back to the board and the committee is I just recently took a cash advance from the Central California for Alliance for Health, our Alliance partners, because of the way the QAF payments and receipts line up. We had a number of payments that were due before we saw any large dollars from QAF payments. We've seen a few dollars, but what this graph is showing you is in the first 3 months, they were not necessarily netting us a lot because there was almost more going out than coming in. And it was going to take us at least till April, and that was the end of April, to see a significant bump in receipts. So we're due about $5 million, $5.2 million towards the end of April, but I went ahead and negotiated and received last week a $3 million advance against that $5.2 million so that we would have it by this week, because I knew, looking at the cash forecast, that it was going to be very tight to make payroll. And the last couple of weeks, our cash collections have been down a bit, and so I'm glad that we were able to secure that with them. They've been great partners in those kind of advances, and so I was glad to secure that so that we had a little bit of breathing room until we get to the end of April. There's, what this graph also shows you, this is just the net by month, and so it's not a cumulative net. I've been thinking about maybe trying to layer the cumulative on top of this, but I haven't done that yet. But there's just, it's very challenging, just the timing, because we make payments before we get our receipts, and those payments are, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, and going to be increasing through the end of QAF 8 and into next year, which is a continuation of QAF 8. And so it's very challenging to sometimes make those payments. I have been successful a number of times in negotiating with the state and just paying 10% up front and then making the remaining payment after we receive their payments. That helps for sure, helps from a cash flow perspective, but it often doesn't feel like there's much left over for us to actually spend on AP or payroll or things that we need to do at the hospital. So the good news is that there's, you know, a few large payments to come this year. I'd say the bad news is much like last year, when we get into about the August to September time frame, I probably will have to ask for another cash advance because we go a long period of time there between August and October in getting that next big payment, and it's pretty hard to hold off some of your AP vendors for too long. You know, we're struggling with a lot of requests right now that we're kind of piecing things together. So with that, I think I will stop, and that was my last slide, and see what questions you have.
Julie, just going back to the slide you were just on, was that what was the time period on that? I was trying to process that in line to your comments. You talked about the April 5.2 million.
Yeah. This is January 24 to December 24. So
Okay.
This is projection of payments based on the schedule we get from California Hospitals Association.
And so the 5.2 million you talked about in April, that's netted, that's reduced for the dish payment?
It's reduced for the payments that we have to make to the state for them to draw down the funds. So in what happens, let me just see here, in April, we make, we make a $795,000 payment in April, and then we have a couple of payments that are coming to make up a little more than 5.2. I'm reading a slide or scheduled to myself that's not in the same order exactly, so I have to kind of quickly do the math.
Okay.
But
no, that's helpful. I appreciate it.
basically,
That
it
makes
is
sense.
the net.
Yep. Thank you. And if you could walk me through on the consolidated balance sheet that's in the board packet. When I'm looking at October's cash, or I guess what you're worried about is September, we get down to 3.6 million, which is a very small margin. I guess that's the month you're most worried about. Is that fair?
You know, it's both August. You know, it looks very similar to what last year looked like, and so I look at it more from, I take our where we track our cash daily, and I've projected it out by day through 12/31, and so, you know, I project out based on what, you know, watching what payroll is doing, you know, what all the payrolls will be, and, you know, when these cloth and dish payments are due, and when we get our receipts from them, and any other supplemental funding that we know about. And then what's left is AP. And I know, you know, in a perfect world, I'd probably be spending, you know, $1.6 million or so every week on AP, but I can't afford to, so I start saying, gee, this week I might only spend $700,000. I know at the end of the month when we have the big payments to MPT that's got to be a larger AP, or nothing else is going to get paid. So that's my real lever, other than anything we do with initiatives, to kind of manage to it. So that's really what tells me when things are going to get light, and that's also kind of exacerbated by the fact that there are payments due for you know, the future cloth, and that it's that kind of lag between when the next big payment coming into us is.
And this maybe goes back to the audit. This gets back to our good friend, the distressed hospital loan of $8.3 million. Do we have a debt amortization repayment schedule? Has that been supplied to us? Or are we still waiting on, like, the level of details? Is it
No, we know it. It's the debt starts or the payment, starts in, May of 2025. So if they don't forgive it by then, starting in May of 2025, the payment is, I forget the exact amount, but it's something like $153,000 a month. And it's a total 6-year loan, but since they gave 18 months of forgiveness, it's like 54 months of payments.
Thank you. Do you think that schedule can be included as an informational item in the next finance committee? I want to start tracking of outreach to our California representatives with, ensuring that we get considered for forgiveness. I've already asked that. Perfect.
Yeah. So, when you say the schedule, do you want, because Jessica has the schedule, do you want just to know
I
starting
think just an
May?
informational item in the board packet or in the finance committee packet for next month, just on consent, just to, accept the schedule so we have that.
Okay. So
Thank you.
we'll have Jessica, pull that for you.
Thank you, Steve, for repeating on top of that. I appreciate it.
I don't know offhand. I'll check.
I didn't hear that.
That's right. Side conversation. Sorry, Julie. We're ordering pizza. No, I don't expect we have any other questions here. I'm good with the reports. Julie, if for any reason you need me to help this presentation for tomorrow, let me know.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to the doctor today. Part of it is an ear infection, so it makes it very difficult for me to hear anyway, let alone through this. But, I'll know more after I go to the doctor this afternoon, see what they think.
Great. Well, as an accept and file, I think our action is done here, and unless there's anything else, I'm happy to adjourn the meeting at 12:53. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.